What's the deal? This your boy, Mr. Athletic over everything, and today has finally come. I'm breaking down the perfect prep, or almost the perfect prep. This was back in 2018 when I was attempting to break the all-time IPF full meet bench record. And I keep emphasizing all-time and full meet for a very specific reason. It's not that I don't respect the guys who just do bench only. It's just a different level of focus and concentration that it takes to do a full meet, put up a big number, and still put up a big bench. And what you see in a lot of cases is that most guys who do bench only don't compete in full competitions, and if they do, they take token lifts. That's not what happened in any of the 600-pound bench presses that I've done in my career. I've done 604 plus times in competition. Two of the times I was weighing under 303 pounds, and the other two, or one of the other ones, I weighed in at 316 pounds, which was the all-time IPF world record. But today what I'm going to do is we're going to rewind all the way back to when the prep started. Now, the one thing I will say is that I thought that I would be able to go a little more in depth in this particular prep. But I started the prep off extremely strong. And to give you a little bit of comparison, I started this prep at 440 pounds for 10 reps. This time around, I'm 5 weeks into my program and I'm still not into the I believe I just did 435 for 10. So that means I'm starting off probably 6 weeks to 2 months ahead of time in terms of my strength levels. But the difference now is that I weigh about 279, 280 pounds versus being around 295, 300 pounds. So there is a bunch of differences. So this prep is going to span from the start, where I started at 440 pounds for 10, all the way to the conclusion where I break the all-time IPF bench record. I'm in a full meet. So we're gonna break this up, and we're gonna start off in a second. All right, so we're gonna go off here with the 440 pounds. I pretty much wanted to go through this so you guys could actually see what goes into the 6-wave training protocols or the bench programming / coaching. Now, to be honest with you, I've done this particular weight for 16 reps before. One of my homies, Darrington Wright, at one point in time, his max bench was like 400. It was either 440 or 446. And I was like, I'm going to do your max for 16 reps. So that's how I kind of know what my max was about this time. But this is where I was during this period. So when I started off the program, I always leave a little slack because there are a bunch of different things within the programming which will catch you up and surpass whatever you were when you started. So let's say, for instance, I told my coach that I bench press 450 for 10. I would probably start you around 435 for 10 and build up back to where you said you were, and then we'll surpass that in the following week or so. But this is how my training and programming works. So I started at 440. 440 was easy. The reps were smooth. Everything worked well. Was no complications, and I knew that. And this is one of the things that I want to talk about within this series, is that a lot of people aren't going to understand this. It's like when you leave a session, sometimes there's going to be left on the training platform. And you should have to be okay with that. If you're okay with that, you will progress greatly in powerlifting. You don't try to get every pound that you have in your training sessions. You know what I'm saying? This is some of the stuff that I see with a lot of novice lifters and a lot of guys who are more or less followers instead of leaders. You know, you see your favorite lifters on Instagram and you see them lift. You see them going for lifts sometimes with that in mind, in a sense that they're going for it all. And to be honest with you, you're going to see that more so with the smaller lifters. The smaller lifters, for whatever reason, they tend to bench press more often. And I do understand, like, if you're someone who has a huge arch, like a Sean Noriega, who has to practice his form and technique, so therefore he has to bench press more often so that that technique of lifting doesn't go backwards. He has to progress forward. So I understand that. But for the most part, a lot of these guys are just benching a lot, just to bench a lot. And that's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. But we start off with 440 pounds. That moved pretty well. Now, all right. So next up, we have 451 pounds for the next set. And during this time, I was going a little bit off program in a sense, is that in most cases, I typically jump 5 pounds, but it depends on my time frame that I'm working within. If I have a lot of time, you can take those you can take those 5 pound increments and work it up to where you need to get to. And that was still well under what my capabilities were. But I stayed disciplined. And discipline is something that I really wanted to touch upon, is that I mentioned this in an IG story a few weeks ago, was the fact that I was working with Steve Goggins, who's one of the greatest powerlifters ever. And that the main issue I had during that time was the fact that I thought I was indestructible. I thought that I knew everything. I thought I knew my body. I thought I could just lift whenever I felt like it. And as you get older and as you mature and as you smarten up as a lifter, you start realizing that you can't PR every session. You can't go for these random ass numbers whenever you feel like it. If you're trying to be a champion, it's not going to work that way. I know that a lot of times I do get upset with watching some of the powerlifters who are more entertainers, who do a lot of fuck shit, you know, wearing like, you know, elbow wraps and knee sleeves and all this stuff over their elbows, and manipulating the numbers in a sense to make people who are following them feel as though they should be achieving those same numbers when it's not realistic. Excuse me. But during this time, I stuck to the plan. I hit the 450 1.9 and kept it moving. Now I'm actually going through this on my iPad as I deliver this message. But next up was 463 pounds. Now, so basically now at this point, I'm literally skipping, I'm jumping 10 pounds or 5 kilos per week, or per session in some of these instances. I'm looking at a lot of these sessions are done in the same session, or they're done in the following week. Now, this is something that where the weight change in my physique has stopped me or hindered me a little bit, is that, let's say for instance, I'm scheduled to do 435 for a set of 10, and I blow past the set of 10. Today, I'm going to stop that, and we're going to hit 435 or 440 on Thursday. But back then, I was like, all right, well, let's jump to the next number. So you were seeing me jump 10 kilos, or not 10 kilos, you're seeing me jump 5 kilos in a session, or 10 kilos that is. You'll see me jump 10 kilos in one session. So this kind of pushed those numbers out further and further. But if I had to think about it, if I had the time to put together a 25-week program, I may just take those 5 pound or 2.5 kilo wins and keep pushing and keep pushing. Now, next up, we're at 470 pounds. Now, this particular time was one where my strength was at an all-time high, but you also have to realize is that going through these lower rep ranges, I was a lot lighter. I was, if I'm not mistaken, I was about 290 to 295 pounds during this time period. So that is actually blown. All right, so I believe I'm having a little issues with trying to sync everything together, but at 470 pounds, it was no issue. So I was able to continue on with the process of going through these reps. Also not feeling forced, not feeling pressured by Instagram, because Instagram plays a huge part in your ego as a lifter. When you're looking at Kings of the Lifts and other websites that post your content, it does a couple of things to you. It gives you a bigger platform. It also puts more pressure on you to produce to produce content. You know, I would see guys lift weights and I'd be like, oh, oh shit, I'm about to push that too. And I might jump up 10 pounds extra to make sure that they're not topping me or doing, they're not doing something more than what I did. You know what I'm saying? So I had to get away from that myself with a little disconnection, and also realize that a lot of these guys that are being posted aren't lifting weights the same way I'm lifting. I'm gonna leave it at that. But we got to 470 pounds. Now, from 470, I played it a lot closer. I made sure that I wasn't taking crazy jumps. Made sure that I stuck to a script for the most part. So instead of going from 570 to 580, I went to 575 for 10. And that was done pretty easy as well. No difficulties, no injuries, no dead arm. From 570, all right, from 570 pounds, now we moved to 581 pounds. Now, the 581 moved a lot easier than I expected as well, because during this time, I believe the highest I've ever gone in terms of reps was 585 pounds for 9. So I know that I'm a little bit stronger than I was before, but at the same time, I'm expecting failure to be somewhere around the corner. And I was able to make it out of that situation as well. All right, so from 581, we jumped to 586 or 585, 586, 587, wherever the number was, and we was able to get that for 10 as well. And at this point in time, I know that I've already gotten stronger since my last wave. Since last wave, I only was able to get 585 for 9. So now we're able to get it for 10. So we know that I've gotten stronger. That is clear and apparent. So we was able to get that set. All right, so next up is 490 pounds, and this was actually extremely controversial within my own brain, because I was thinking that the same energy that it would take for me to get to 490 pounds would be the same energy that it would take for me to do 500 pounds. And I loaded up 500 pounds on this particular day, 501.5 pounds, but I thought back, I was like, you know what, we're going to go through the process. So I put 490 pounds on the bar, and 490 pounds moved extremely well, extremely smooth, and it worked like a piston. The way that I trained my reps, they did exactly what I needed them to do. The last one was a little bit hard, but it was one of those things where I kind of knew where I needed to be, but I actually miscounted, and at the last minute I realized I didn't, so I wound up doing 2 pause reps at the end of that particular rep set. All right, so in these particular clips, I'm not 100% sure how I'm gonna place this, but I was doing a seminar telling the athletes what to expect at the powerlifting meet, and it was a little bit different here because they run things a little bit different down in Barbados. They run everything a little bit later in the day, so you're talking about running a powerlifting meet at 4 p.m. With people who aren't really accustomed to running meets. They're waiting for the crowd. The crowd doesn't really, they're not as knowledgeable. So it's like, what's going on? People don't understand what's happening. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But in this particular scenario, I believe I benched 505. All right, it looks like none of that got recorded. Okay, Well, at this point in my prep, I have a trip scheduled to Barbados where I'm scheduled to give some judging as well as some seminars on powerlifting while I'm down there. This is smack dab in the middle of my prep. So I was scheduled to do like 507 for 8 reps while I was there. The day in which I was really attempting to do this, I couldn't do it. The temperature was different, the environment was different, equipment, everything was different. So it's probably not the best thing for my prep, but it was something that had to happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and include those clips right here. For 3 or 4 reps, and then we go to the football field now, or the field where they're gonna have their strongman competition. So I basically took 545 for a ride, and then I did 585 on an unbalanced field, very wobbly bench. I was still able to do that. So after that, we're back in the States. All right, so at this point in the matter, we're at 507. I was attempting to do this for 8 reps. Now, it's rare that I don't actually complete a wave, but this was one where I didn't even get to 8. I thought that I was going to be able to get to 507 for 8, but I didn't on this particular one. Now, to take for example, the time where I was able to do 485 for 9, I actually did 523 for 8. So just to give you guys a little understanding about how the waves work. So I went through the process. We did the 507. We're only able to get to 7 reps, but at the same time, this still puts my one-time max up there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not looking at the numbers offhand, but I believe this still puts me at around 650 pounds for a one max rep, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm still feeling good heading into IPF Worlds. I believe this is like May 10th, 2018. So everything is actually working. So what I do when you miss a rep, I didn't retake it. I said, you know what, we're just going to drop down to that next wave. The 5 wave is probably the most important wave outside of the 10 wave, because it's the biggest drop in reps. You go from 8 reps down to 5, and you only go up 5 pounds, 2.5 kilos. So you typically are going to spend more time in that higher end in the 5 wave. And we went to 523 for 5, which turned out to be extremely easy. All right, so next up, we're at 530 pounds for 5. Now, I don't know if many of you guys understand how ridiculous things are starting to get at this point, is that I'm pushing weights that no one like me has ever done before. You don't have someone who's under 300 pounds, who's drug-free, who's benching this type of weight. And it's starting to get kind of scary, because if you think about the guys that I was competing against for top bench in the IPF, all these guys are over 350, 450 pounds in some instances. So I'm getting my feet underneath me and I am absolutely rolling. 530 pounds move very easy as well. And to be honest with you, during this time, I believe my projected one max rep was still right around that 650 pound barrier. So I'm feeling extremely confident going into the next set or the next wave. All right, here we are. 535 pounds moving like butter. Now, what made this actually a little more interesting is that we're only 10 pounds off of my all-time best bench press ever competing untested. My best bench press was 545 pounds untested, or 547 before I came over to USAPL. I had never taken anything ever in my life, but this kind of shows the level in which I'm lifting at this point. And 535 moved very, very well. All right, so now we're at 540 pounds. Now things are getting extremely spooky. And based on how I designed my programming and how I designed the 6-wave, is that depending on where you are in the wave process, your numbers are going to start mirroring. So let's say, for instance, if you took your average or your prospective 1 max rep in the 10-wave, and then if you take it in the 5-wave, they should be very similar. And what you can do is just do an average, and if you do an average, that'll put you pretty much on par where you should be at. Okay, now 540 pounds moved extremely well, and like I said, this was always one of those big numbers for me because it was 4 plates and a black plate, or a 15 kilo plate, and you knew you meant business at that point. So when you start moving this type of weight, you start trying to break down every aspect of your bench. And one thing that people have questioned about my technique sometimes is the pistoning action. You know, when I'm benching, I'm looking for a stroke, and I'm not completely locking out. I'm not looking for that at that point. But in the natural curation of my program, your reps improve as the weights drop. So it takes care of itself, and that's why I don't put much emphasis into locking the weight completely out. In some cases, I think that it doesn't help for how I run my program. All right, so the next set was 446 or 47 pounds for 5. This was probably one of the greatest sets ever in powerlifting, especially on the drug tested side. You have somebody who's right around 300 and, well, actually I was 292 pounds when I did this set. And for me to be able to do this set like this, now there was one thing about this set that was very interesting. It was that I was able to tell right away that it was no going to 551 pounds and doing this for 5, because it took everything out of me. So after I completed this set of 5, we instantly dropped down to the 3-wave. All right, so the 3-wave started off pretty different. I actually thought that I was going to wind up in the 567 range for 5. Excuse me. Before I was able to drop down to the next weight class, or the next wave. But we wound up starting the 3-wave with 300. Damn, I'm sorry. We wound up starting the 3-wave with 562 pounds. And as you would expect, it moved extremely well based on the circumstances. It moved much, much better than I thought it ever would, especially being that this was more weight than I've ever bench pressed under these circumstances. Now, next up, we actually did this in the same day. So I went 562 and jumped all the way up to 573 pounds, and we did that for 3 reps, and we did that on the same exact day. So if you would have thought that maybe if I'd have pushed that to that Thursday or that Monday, depending on what day I took it on, I could have been even stronger later on in this process. Now, from the 573 for 3, I jumped all the way to 585 or 584.2 with I don't think I had the lockjaw collars on there at this time. But when I got to this level, I knew that things were changing. 584.2 for 3 reps is kind of ridiculous. And also on these particular reps, I believed I was pausing the final rep. So if I'm pausing, 1, 2. Okay, so only did it for 2 reps. Okay, so now we're starting off. All right, so that was actually my first fail. I failed at 585 or 584.2 for a triple. I actually only did it for a double. And then shortly after that, I believe this is where I started to spread out my training a little bit, and I did 573 legs up for a death rep. And a death rep is another element of the 6 wave that I implement for different lifters at different points in times in their programming. Alright, for whatever reason, I cannot find the clip of me doing 590 for a double pause, but just believe that I did it. I can't find it at this point in time where I'm shooting this video, which is crazy because I've been teasing this video forever and I don't have that part of the footage. But we jumped to 600.8 pounds for a double next. Alright, so this is pretty much the crescendo of the prep here. I was technically off by a week, and this is what happened. I got to 590 for a double, and I did it. But based on programming, I should have done 595 next. But for whatever reason, after watching the double on 590, I was like, I don't know if, I think the same energy would take 595 and 590 and 600. So let's just take the 600. So we load the bar up with 600 pounds, paused for a double. And it moved easier than I ever could have imagined. And I was actually scared of the set. But what you're watching here is technically the second set. One of the funniest stories that I have in powerlifting is that I was preparing for this set, and I had 2 cameras going, one on each side, different angles, whatnot. I finished the set, and when I did that first set with 600.8 pounds, it felt like nothing was on the bar. The reps were super easy, super smooth. I go to one camera, out of memory. I'm like, what the fuck? But afterwards, I was like, damn, I got another camera. Ain't tripping. I go to it. It did not record. So basically, I did 600 pounds for a double at 292 pounds, and no one was going to see it. I was almost in tears. I remember just like sitting around for a second, like, damn, I unracked the weights. I was pissed. But something told me the internet needs to see this. This is my ego coming in. I load the weight back up about 35 minutes later. I didn't warm up, didn't do anything. I load 600 pounds back up on there, and I get it. That's what you see in this particular video. It was me hitting that for the second set. The first set moved great. But after I did the second set, I felt a twinge in my pec. And this is where the prep was not so perfect. But it threw me off a little bit. So that Monday coming, I was supposed to do 606 for a double. And that was going to be the last time I benched going into IPF Worlds on that following Saturday. But this is what happened. I wound up going to do the 606, but at the last minute, I realized I wasn't that strong, so I only did it for a single pause. So this was my last time benching before I hit the platform. All right, so with that happening, it threw everything off, right? So I went from thinking that I could possibly open at 600 pounds to now not knowing where I would actually be. I can't find this footage either, but my last time trying a comp rep, I did 573, and it was like I was shaking benching. And what it did was it completely knocked my confidence going into the meet day. I believe I did the 573 on a Thursday, and wait, no, I did the 573 on a Thursday, and then didn't like how it moved. I took 606 that Monday, and when I took 606 that Monday, that's what you see there. But at the same time, I'm not very confident in that particular lift. So we get to comp day. Now, from this point on, I'm going to give you guys the footage of what I actually shot during that time afterwards, showing the first lift all the way to the end. All right, guys. In a second. But anyway, the original plan was to go 573, 600, 618, or whatever I needed for the world record. But things kind of didn't play out like that. In warm prep, that I had some serious goals, and I believed that I was going to need 618 pounds to break the all-time world record, and it wound up not being that wound up not being the number. Actually, the number, for whatever reason, we went for, I'll tell you in a second. But anyway, the original plan was to go 573, 600, 618, or whatever I needed for the world record. But things kind of didn't play out like that. In warm-ups, I took 500 pounds. I did not like how it moved, so I told the coach to lower it. He was kind of like, why? I was like, look, let's just make sure, secure the win. I know I got 727 pounds on squat, which is basically 27 pounds more than I expected to get off a squat. So I'm thinking more or less go into secure mode instantly. So instantly, all the little numbers I had in my head, I was willing to do away with them just to make sure I won the event, won the medals, and didn't even care about a total at this point. So we lowered the opener to 530 pounds or 529 pounds. Jamie, once again, who's also my biggest competition, and what makes him different than most of the masters is that he also has a huge bench, is capable of going maybe 560 plus pounds if on a given day. So leaving squat, going to bench, it's not like I'm gonna be even, then I'm gonna beat the person on bench by more than 100 pounds. It wasn't going to be like that in this situation. So he hits his opener. The guy from Canada hits his opener. I'm so sorry for forgetting his name. Everyone hits their openers, and mine looks like it was nothing on the bar. It was literally a waste of time. Like, it was so fast. So I went ahead and jumped to 573 pounds, which is 260 kilos, which was a Masters World Record. Single lift and full meet lift. So I jumped to that number, which should have been my opener. I destroyed this weight. This weight was probably the best I've ever hit any weight over 540 pounds maybe. It absolutely flew. And from that point, I was like, let's just go to 600 or 589. And the coach was like, no, we're going for the open world record. Like, who cares? You've already basically secured the win with the 573. All you need is 700 pounds for a 2,000 total. You might as well go all out now. So I was like, you know what, you're right. So we went ahead and loaded the bar. I believe Jamie went, I don't remember the number he actually went for, but I think if I would have missed the 573 or couldn't have been able to lift it, he could have won. So it might have been 540 or something like that. So we go ahead and load it up for the all-time world record in a full meet. And the crowd was absolutely going crazy. There was a lot of hype, a lot of hoopla. Basically, it was the only platform going once that happened. And I really was positive. You know, normally I get extremely emotional with big lifts, and that didn't happen this time. And I got the person who was doing the handoffs was handing off like butter. So when I got the weight, I didn't feel anything once again. And you know, if anything, you follow me, I have been dealing with dead arm. And the problem with the dead arm is not the pressing, it's more or less controlling the weight on the way down. And I didn't have any issues, so when I started bringing the weight down, I didn't feel anything. And it gave me a decent pause. It wasn't short by no means, but it wasn't crazy long. And once they said press, I fire up, and the weight flew off my chest. And once I got to about halfway, it was like a slight stick, and then I fought through it, and waiting for the judges to, you know, give it 3 white lights or 2 to 1. I just fell to my knees and couldn't control it. You know, I looked like I got shot actually, but that's what actually happened in that scenario. So, all right, so that was pretty much it. And you saw what happened at the end. I broke the all-time bench record in the IPF for a full meet. And this was something that I have been shooting for the last 2 years. The year before, I just missed the record. My feet blew from underneath me, and I did not get the world record, but I was able to get it on this last attempt. This series or this video is basically to show you that if you stick to program, you'll get the result that you're looking for. It may not be the number that you really want, but it'll be the number that you put the work in for. As you get better in powerlifting, you're gonna stop YOLOing. You're gonna stop the need to feel as though you have to lift for Instagram or for YouTube. You're gonna start lifting for what's better for you. And that's what I learned over this period of time, is that if I stick to the program and do what I'm supposed to do, the strength will be there on meet day. That's where you have to trust your coach, your handlers, and the people that have your best interests in heart. So if you guys are interested in trying out the 6-wave programming, coaching, hit me up. Let me rewind that. benchlegend619.5 at gmail.com, or you can just hit me up in the DM or in the comment section on YouTube, but in the DM on Instagram, and I'll let you know how much it costs if I have space for you. But this is a proven method that was put to the test with me en route of breaking the IPF world record. In a couple of months, I'll be breaking the IPF 120 all-time records as well. So just be on the lookout for these records coming up in my training and me documenting my road to the Arnold. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informational. And if you guys have any questions, just leave it in the comments. And also, if you guys are interested in any of the merch, you can hit me on Instagram in my DMs, or Athletic Over Everything, or AOE Custom Apparel. You can hit me there, and I'll give you guys information on how to purchase the clothing there as well. This is Jason Mike, Mr. Athletic Over Everything. Later.